Hi, I'm Dr. Tariq Karim, American Board Internal Medicine Consultant, currently working in Ajman, UAE. Today I'm going to start a series on weight management, how to lose weight, maintain your weight, and some myths and facts and fads and medicines we'll discuss about in the series. So let's start with the presentation of me explaining it to you on a board what the human weight is all about. Your caviar, how much an ideal weight should be. The easiest way is just calculate your height in inches. Like, for example, somebody is 5 feet 7 inches. So his total height is 67 inches. Now, his weight should be the same in kilograms, like round about 67 kilograms will be fine. If it is 2 kilos less, 65 kg, it's even better. Now, let me discuss this whole idea of considering the human body as a bank. You see, we are what we eat, and our body is like a bank. The food that we eat goes inside this bank as a deposit, and the exercises and the expenditure of daily energy is the money that comes out of this bank. And at the end of the day, it's the balance between the expenditure and the deposit that keeps accumulating and gives you your final weight. Now, let's start with the first thing. The thing that goes inside the bank is your cash, what you earn, and the cash is the food that you eat. The food goes inside the energy part in the form of glucose, and glucose is managed by the insulin. Insulin deposits this glucose inside the bank in the cells. And then when you keep eating extra, this goes from glucose, which has been taken in the cells, to the extra calories that go inside the liver and are stored as glycogen. And then if you keep eating more and more, then you start developing fat in your body. This fat is in two forms. We can call it short-term fixed deposit and a long-term fixed deposit. Whereas the glycogen stored in your liver, you should consider it as your current account. Some of this energy, along with the protein, goes in making up the structures in the body, the muscles, and you can consider it as your house against which you are taking the mortgage. And then if you keep eating more and more, then you start developing fat in your body. This fat is in two forms. We can call it short-term fixed deposit and a long-term fixed deposit. Whereas the glycogen stored in your liver, you should consider it as your current account. Some of this energy, along with the protein, goes in making up the structures in the body. The first concept is that we're going to discuss about in weight management, which is very common, is to skip the breakfast. So people skip their breakfast thinking that they will not eat anything and they will lose the weight by skipping the breakfast. But it has not been proven to be right, because in a study published in 2010 where they took about 2,000 people and from 9 to 15 years of age, and then they reevaluated these subjects after 15 years, and they found out that the group of the people who were not taking their breakfast, actually their weight and their waist circumference was more than the people who were taking their breakfast. That's why this is said that the breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And the dinner, I think, is very important to understand, and it has been the observation that if you want to lose your weight, you have to be very, very careful about your dinner. You cannot eat too much and sleep after the dinner. That will lead you to weight gain. You should take your dinner much earlier, maybe around 6 or 7 o'clock, and then do not eat anything during the night. And that will lead to the weight loss. The most important thing for losing the weight is that you take much less at your dinner. Now we go to the second part, that there are some fat burning foods that can help with the weight loss. These foods are like pineapple, ginger, onions, avocados, asparagus, chilies, broccoli, and green tea also. Although there has not been any scientific study which has looked into these matters and found a result, but still, yes, it has been observed in anecdotal reports which show that these things do help in increasing the metabolic rate of the body and help in losing more calories in these people. Now there is another thing which is very common and it's all over the stores, that the low fat foods, and you have cereals and other foods which they claim this has got low fat ice creams and all that stuff. But you have to remember one thing: when you take fat out of the food, the taste, it becomes less palatable. And these companies, to make it more palatable, they increase the glucose, the sugar content, they make it more sugary, so they are more palatable. But in the long run, the calorie intake becomes more instead of becoming less. The fat will be low, but the calories will be more in these foods. So in the end of the day, you have to look at the label and look at the amount of calories in these foods, so you can calculate how much you're eating and what you're eating. So be careful. The low fat foods are always padded up with a lot of sugar. Now the other concept is snacking between the meals. Again, there are two schools of thought about snacking between the meals. Actually, there are two types of people who snack between the meals. One group of people is who take their meals, and in between their meals they take very light snacks like a celery stick, some salad, some fruit, some low calorie yogurts, this type of stuff. And then when they go to eat, they are less hungry and they eat less, and as a total they maintain their weight or lose their weight. As compared to that, there are people who take very rich foods as snacks and chocolates and ice creams and heavy foods and pizzas and croissants, and they actually end up in gaining weight, because at the end of the day their total calorie intake is much more than the person who has taken 3 meals. And then there is again the other thing is, if you take only 3 meals a day and you do not take any snack in between them, then you may be too hungry and you overeat because of your reflex to the hunger that you had been suffering through the day, as I told you, the early mechanism. But again, then there are people who eat 3 times a day, but when they eat 3 times a day, they are conscious about the calories they are taking, and they take light food and they maintain their weight. So this is again, both sides have got their plus and minuses. Now we talk about you see, once in a while you want to eat a chocolate or some treat, some sweet, something to make you feel better. The thing is that if you are too strict on your diet, what will happen is not taking any treats in between can be counterproductive, because then this will make your diet program very boring for you and you end up in abandoning the whole program. So it's okay for once in a while you treat yourself with some rich meal, but you always keep account of your calories so you can balance it later. Now there is another concept in dieting, that some sugars are good and some sugars are bad, like if molasses or raw sugar or honey is better than you take a refined sugar. But the thing is, it has to deal with the glycemic index of these foods. For example, glycemic index of the refined sugar is much more than the glycemic index of honey or molasses. But again, here it doesn't count. What counts here is the glycemic load, how much you have taken. So if you have taken the same amount of glucose, same amount of sugars and same amount of honey and molasses, at the end of the day this all has to be broken down into monosaccharides by your digestive system, and the amount of calories that will reach your system will be the same. So it will not help you to take different types of sugars. What is important is you count your calories and don't overeat yourself. Now we're going to discuss about the artificial sweeteners. The artificial sweeteners has been a very controversial subject nowadays because everything diet has got artificial sweeteners. And they claim that they will decrease the calorie intake which you take in the form of sugars. As you know, these sugary soft drinks, they've got a lot of sugar inside. But then there was a study, a systemic review that analyzed 37 studies with 406,000 people. They analyzed them over a period of time. That was a meta-analysis. And then they found out that the people who were taking sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, they had gained weight instead of losing the weight. And the reason for that was because these artificial sweeteners actually stimulate the hunger centers in the brain instead of suppressing it or reducing the calorie intake. And instead of losing weight, these people gained the weight. Now, on top of that, there are other things also associated. For example, the most common one is which is not being in fashion now, was the aspartame. Aspartame is known to be involved in the neuronal transmission in the brain, and it has been associated with the neuropsychiatric problems. Same way, saccharine, which is again still used sometimes, is associated with cancers, especially the bladder cancer. Sucralose has been associated with the weight gain, not the weight loss. So in the long run, artificial sweeteners have not been proven to be of any help in losing the weight.